Mike, I see the recording has started.
Yeah, me too.
I got the banner. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So your chair is connecting through his phone. So he's on here too. And what I'm going to do is I have, all right, let me just. I'm used to doing this with, I sent an email out that I had gotten from Kim yesterday, which is just a version of the Excel spreadsheet with the numbers. Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
So if you want to open that.
Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Sorry for the technical delays, technical issues here. All right, so let's open the Finance Committee meeting for June 2nd at 6:50 to review budget transfers, or transfers rather. Do you have the minutes, Gene? Okay,
What's the name of that printer over
that's a Wi-Fi question that I don't know. Okay.
Are you trying to print the notes or are you trying to
there?
print?
Oh, Mike sent, yeah. He's got a copy of it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can, I can know if you can read it, man.
I'll tell you. I'll look on Mike's computer. All right.
All right, are you should be sharing, you should be seeing the
Yep.
the transfer form, the KVS form.
Yeah, it's the same thing that I.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to show them the other form, other document personally?
Yeah. Yeah, he's on here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you got John, Mike Krager,
and Jack.
and then you two guys, all right?
Yeah,
So,
and I saw this, I saw that, Mike. Thank you. That first sheet I did see. Thank you.
all right, great.
And now you guys see the shared sheet that Mike has up right now?
I do. I
Okay,
see.
so basically what Mike was describing to me on an overview level, just so we're all on the same page, so we understand how to look at this document, and we can go over like the detailed questions that we have afterwards. These are, all these here from 2 to 22 are the accounts where the money is. So the value on 510 is the value in the account, and then in the 516 is the transferred value out of the account. That's quantifying that 287,904.24. Do you guys see that?
Yes.
So these are all the accounts that the additional money is in, and the values, the value left in this item on 24 and E24, that 159,504, that's what's the cumulative value left in all these accounts. Does that make sense?
That's an overall surplus?
That's an overall surplus from what we're saying. So you got the 447, 408, 24 value in those accounts.
Yeah.
Now, I can't speak to the fact that all of that money is actually still surplus. Maybe Mike can speak to that.
Yeah, this was as of May. This, what it comes down to is column C is the
Value of
what
this.
was left over at that point in the year. And then column D is how much we want to take from each one of these to cover the shortages in the other parts of the department budgets that we need to cover. And then 159,504 is what's left in all of these particular accounts that all had surpluses in them at that time in the year. So if you want to go back to the transfer.
Oh,
form,
transfer, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Sheet two.
so you can see, so we have from and to. So two are where all of the shortages are. And that's where we're trying to fill in. So if you want, we can, if you have any questions about each one of these accounts. So going from town accountant expenses down to dog office, the street lights, unemployment, legal, police expenses, and so on. Those are where where the money is short. And if you look in column H, it gives you a number for why, why we need this money at this point.
Okay, so this is just a general from to list. It's not
It's
line
not
items.
item by item. That's correct.
Okay, yeah, because that was my confusion. I'm like, well, how we're moving $32,000
said
of
the same
dispatch
thing.
salary?
It was just a coincidence
The
that
fine.
treasurer collective banking services and town accountant expenses was the same amount of money.
Okay.
So you've got everything on the left, cumulatively 287,904 is the amount we're taking out of each one of those department items on the left. And then cumulatively 287,904 is how much is being moved into all of the individual accounts on the right. And again, we're going from treasurer collective banking services to town accountant expenses, basically from income side to, accountant expenses, because those are the costs, because, we don't have a town account, we pay a contractor. Again, dog officer, we're going to a different regional dog officer. So this is just contractual. This is how much additional it's going to be. 10,000 is because of the rate increase for electricity for streetlights. Unemployment, we're anticipating it's going to be 35,000 more than we budgeted because of people who left in this year. Legal expenses, there are, again, there's just legal issues like there always are that we really can't discuss, but that's what that 50,000 is. Police expenses, again, same thing, utility costs for the new police station. And then when you look at all of the rest of these, the finance salaries, town hall salaries, police salaries, fire, highway, council of aging, and library salaries, this is an additional 2% that's contractual. That
all the salaries, finance salaries, the library salaries, they got a 2% increase, and that's why this money.
correct.
Okay, so let's back up to the other side. Why is there 70 grand left over in the banking services?
Well, because when we anticipated at the beginning of the year that just the money didn't get spent yet.
So are we taking?
We budgeted 70,405 more than we're going to spend this year. So if we didn't spend it, it would go down to free cash.
Right.
So what we're gonna do is.
I guess, so backing up is, why did we approve an excess of $70,000?
Well, part of it was, if you remember, I was talking about software. It's not gonna happen until July. So it was budgeted for this year and it got pushed off until next year.
Okay. So going to the dispatch salary was 32,000 extra in that. Why is that?
Both salaries and expenses was because we regionalized dispatch.
And that was some of the savings?
Right, that's some of the savings. Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, that was running this year. They probably just shut it down.
Yeah, it was,
Moved
again,
to transfer
we
quicker.
gotta remember, right? We, just like we just did the budget for next year now, this money was budgeted in the previous year, and it's just, and it's, this, what Metacomet, right? The new dispatch system, the state was so hot to get that up and running. They've just really been very generous, which is a good thing for us for a change, right?
Yeah.
On the winning side.
So would that be the same for the expenses? Dispatch?
Yes, both of those, both salaries and, because obviously we anticipated to be paying salaries, and then they wrapped it up quicker. So we didn't have to spend it.
Right, and Mike Maroli, just a quick question, Jack here. My recollection is that what's being sort of described in the sheet is something we've previously seen. That is, we're not talking about any net new. What we're really talking about is moving money from one pocket, if you will, to another pocket in order to cover those particular expenses. So we have, in essence, on the left side here, on the from side, an excess in those accounts, and we're just trying to, basically move those excesses into accounts where we've got, deficits. So there's no new money.
No, and I would even, if I go back to sheet 1, you'll see here that the money in those accounts is actually even more than what we're taking. We're just taking 287,904 of the full 47,408, right? So we still have, we still about 160,000.
Yeah,
And if we don't end up using that, then that's going to go down to free cash next year, along with a lot of revenue that's come in this year that is not reflected in the budget document.
Right. And Mike, at least, Mike Maroli, at least, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over someone. I think I hear Mike in the background.
the comment that I was, just want to make is, the next time we should see what the total budget is of these things here, so we can see what the total budget was.
Well, I can go into that folder if you want me to pull it up, if you want to look at it.
Sure.
All right, let me see if I can.
Well, so I'm going off of memory, right? One thing that would be interesting to see for these types of reports in the future is just, what percentage underspent are we on these line items based off of the original budget, right? So it looks like that we are underspent by like 5.5%. If we think about the non-school portion of the budget is about $8 million, right?
Yeah, I think it's actually, I think the school budget part of last year it was about 22 million, right? And about 55%. So we got about somewhere between 9 and 10 is the town hall side. And, remember that number is looking at in May, so we still have another month to go.
Yeah.
So, but you're right, the burn rate is, we're not, when you look at it, we're not bad. It's just that there are some accounts that are more expensive and some are worse. And Mike, the folder I was looking at is actually the new budget we were working on. So I don't have access to that old one right now. But like I said, with what we were talking about before we actually got on here and realized that the people who were going to tie in remotely was that if you remember, we had purchased we were planning to purchase some new software because we're getting rid of KVS. And it's something that's going to give everybody read access all the time that need it. So in other words, rather than you waiting for somebody to send you an email, Mike, you're going to be able to go on your computer, log in and look at it in real time as the process is going on. So you'll have more access to the document, to the working documents. So you'll be able to answer those questions yourself. And of course, you'll be actually more ready at a meeting, as long as you have time to look at it ahead of time to digest it and be ready to be well informed. So we save a lot of time at the meetings.
And Mike Maroli, if I could just ask a follow-on question. I on the police expense there for 38,000 for the utility cost for the new station. My recollection is Chief Kersey came in and described how the HVAC system there was actually quite sophisticated and needed, I think, the attention of some highly specialized technicians. Is that what is reflected here, or is this is something over and above that? This is really, we're talking about basically energy supply to the building.
Well, the way it was explained to me back almost a month ago now, and again yesterday, was utility costs. Because it says new station. My understanding was it was just additional electricity and heat, just because inflation numbers have gone up. But you are right. I do remember those other issues when it comes to the HVAC. That's actually a different issue. That is, we're going after the contractor right now, and we actually have. It's a little convoluted. We actually have an executive session coming up to discuss a lot of those issues. But rest assured that the money that you're asking about, we're not going to be responsible for that. We've already. I'm going to tell you, I don't. And Mike Mandalia would know this more than I would. but I've never been aware of a police chief who is as involved in, you know, the actual being like a clerk of the works and dealing with all of these budgetary issues. But he has really been on top of people. And I think it's a lot different when you're a contractor and suddenly the chief of police is giving you a call and saying, hey, I'm looking at your budget here and I don't understand why you're charging us for this when you said you weren't gonna. And obviously you all know he would be here, but sadly his father-in-law was killed in a motorcycle crash on Sunday.
Oh, geez, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
actually,
saw that in the paper. Yeah, very
Yeah,
sad.
right. And actually the services are going to be Saturday morning from 8:30 to 10:30. There'll be calling hours at Life Song Church in Sutton, and then there'll be a service at 10:30. But that's sadly our finance director's father.
Yeah, that's true.
Who's the chief of police's father-in-law. Was a tragedy, but you know he would be here to answer these questions. But
Sure.
but I know I'm going far afield, but it's utility costs.
That I got it, Mike. Thank you, and thank you for the clarification, because I knew that I recall the chief mentioning this, but it sounds to me like the HVAC technician maintenance expenses, that's distinguishable from what we're seeing here, and that sounds to me to be consistent with obviously a larger footprint for the building, obviously, right, than the older building to begin with, right, in terms of square foot.
Well, some of it's that, but a lot of it is just the increased cost of heat and electricity, you know, over the last few months.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm sure that'll be taken.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
On the salaries that we need to move monies into, I guess contractual extra 2%, doesn't that mean we should have budgeted for that extra
No,
2% since
because-
it was part of the contract, or?
No, because what happened, if you notice on the left side, of course, you look, one of these was reserved for salary negotiations.
Yep.
And what happened is, it was negotiated. We had some of these contracts that were wrapped up, they were retroactive.
Yep.
So when they were renegotiated, you know, the extra 2% is retroactive to the previous year.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Great. So, Mike, would you be looking for a motion to approve the transfers as described here on the?
Yeah, this is what you want. Scroll down right there.
Yeah, I think we'd be making a motion, Jack, to approve the 287,904 as outlined in the document. I don't know, the document has a date to kind of pull from, but it doesn't.
Yeah, well, it'd be today's date, and
Yeah.
this has already been approved by the select board.
Yeah.
But obviously both boards and committees need to approve it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So this document though is not the document that I sent you guys, just so you know, this document is the document that Mike just sent to us. Just so we don't get confused, just so you guys know.
But I think the best way to do the motion is just to make a motion to transfer, you know, the amount that was already approved by the select board last month, which is this 287,904.
I'm glad to so move the transfer of 287,904 as described here, and as approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion on this, guys? Any more discussion on this? Or are you guys pretty much good?
I'm good.
Good.
Okay. All those in favor?
Jack, aye.
Mike Krieger, aye.
I got I.
Any opposed? No. Motion passes. Awesome, guys.
Now, something else I wanted to suggest that
Yes.
I had done, and I know both Jack and Mike Amandoli are aware of it. In previous years, when it comes to the last 30 days, the board would, the finance committee would normally authorize the chair to make any transfers in the last 30, to approve any transfers in the last 30 days just to prevent the difficulty because of the difficulty of getting a quorum. So if you want, you can do it this way now, or you can approve the chair or any one of you actually to act on behalf of the finance committee to sign these forms, knowing that the select board also has to, approve them.
And Mike Morley, just a quick question. So this has been now approved, what's in front of us for the 287,904, and it seems to me Mike can sign on behalf of the finance committee for this one. What you're referring to now is any future issue.
Right. In other words, right.
Over the summertime. So for example,
in the next month,
Yeah.
because anything after, the end of this month, and then, bills that come in, we can pay them up to, I think it's July 12th. But anything, and
She's got it right here.
okay.
Let me just read it. A town may, by majority vote of any meeting duly held, transfer any amount previously appropriated to any other use authorized by law. Alternatively, the selectmen, with the concurrence of the finance committee, under section 16 of chapter 39, may transfer within the last 2 months of any fiscal year or during the first 15 days of the new fiscal year to apply to the previous fiscal year any amount appropriated, other than for the use of municipal light department or a school department. So basically we got the 15.
Right, 15. So basically it's another
Right.
45 days.
Right.
It's another 45
Right.
days or another.
So you can either decide to meet again, or you can just give your chair the authority to do these end of year transfers himself.
I'd be happy to do it and keep you guys informed on whatever changes were made or what other additional transfers had to be made.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to empower Chairman Mike Jones to act on behalf of the Finance Committee with respect to any transfers described that may need action between now and the end of
July 15th.
Yeah,
July 15th.
Yeah, July 15th. Yep.
I so move.
Second,
Do I have a second?
Mike Krager, second.
Mike Krager, second. Any other discussion on this, guys?
I believe in you, Mike Jones.
Thanks, buddy. I
There
appreciate
are
it.
way too many mics on this meeting.
I know. All
This
those
is
in favor?
ridiculous. Mike Krager, aye.
Jack Hodgins, aye.
Thank you. All right, that takes care of that item. Oh, there you go. Bring up the budget. There you go. Okay, and then basically our last item of business was just to kind of review the budget process from last year. Basically have a conversation about, where we thought it went and what we think we could do better as a board. And what information we believe we can reach out to get ahead of time, things of that nature. It's more just, I just wanted to put it out there to everybody so we had an opportunity to discuss it. I didn't have a real agenda to follow. I wanted more input from you guys as well. So I don't know if anybody wants to take off on this or has anything to add.
I mean, so my personal thoughts as the newbie here, I think there were pluses and minuses. I think we didn't appropriately set up expectations of what types of discussions should have been had at the joint meetings. I get that some of my fellow committee members probably didn't see this as going as well as it could have. But, personally, I don't like to make people dance for their dinner multiple times, and I don't see a need to have multiple departments come in multiple times unless absolutely necessary. I also am perfectly fine with having the meetings be, a joint FinCom select board meeting where, it is on the agenda of the FinCom, on the agenda of the select board meeting. And in my opinion, if the select board meeting needs to go until 2 o'clock in the morning in order to answer all the questions that we have, and we treat it as a FinCom meeting, then so be it. So I think that the methods we took to try and have the discussions were appropriate, and we should have taken advantage of that time to ask the types of questions we wanted to ask, and just utilize those meetings as we felt necessary to get the information. The only thing that I would have liked to have seen gone better is a bit better communication outwardly about the uploading of documents, where the documents are placed, access to the documents, even digitally. You know, even an email of just, hey, we've uploaded X, Y, and Z documents.
Yeah.
At least 48 to 72 hours. Yeah, 48 to 72 hours ahead of time. You know, there's got to be some sort of notice of, hey, we've done this, right? We're all volunteers. I don't do this, you know, I'm not getting paid to do this. And I have to manage communications personally out to many folks, and do the same sort of thing. It's a common courtesy to be able to have documents that are going to be reviewed as a group ready before the meeting, at least 48 to 72 hours. I was asking a week. That seems to be unreasonable, based off of some of my asks and when documents were prepared. So at least 48 to 72 hours, and a notice of saying, hey, this is ready for our presentation on X date. And in my opinion, we should be sticking to a real process of, this is when the documents are ready. And if they're not ready 48 to 72 hours ahead of that meeting, then that meeting gets pushed. Because it's unfair to everybody trying to prepare to ask questions, or prepare their questions or understanding of the information. It's unfair to walk into it cold. So that either means that if we're expected to walk into it cold, we either need to be part of the quote unquote sausage making more early on, so that we're not walking into it cold, or we need to be given the proper amount of time to review documentation and not have it be, hours before the meeting, or even just not at all, just simply, sort of hand it over at meeting time. And I get that, lots of people who are old hat at this, it's probably, well, why do we need it this early? But we have significantly new members on the select board. We have lots of new members on the FinCom. And it would be very much appreciated to have been walked through this process a bit more, as a newbie. And in my work job, I am very much a part of how we develop processes around things like this. I don't feel we actually have a process. I have no idea what the RACI is, who's responsible, who's accountable, who are the consultants, who provides the inputs, where are the outputs going. I know nothing about all of the different nodes of where the budget needs to be, how it needs to be traveling through all of the different departments, and why and when. I haven't seen anything like, I saw a calendar, maybe a list of some dates. That's not a process. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to really work on what an actual budget process really is. And we need to stick to that in order to have good accountability.
Well, if I can just interject, first of all, I have someone who's, and I was on the FinCom for 10 years, as somebody who's been on even a lot longer than I have. And both of us have been asking the same types of questions, maybe not quite as articulately as you, for a long time. And all I can tell you is a lot of it has to do with technology, because there is a process. The issue is that the board and the finance committee brought in, I think, because of the lack of technology later in the process. And with the new software that we bought and the new, what's being developed now, we even have the Division of Local Services coming in to look at our whole financial operation this summer, is that everything that gets done will be done in real time, and you'll be able to see it in real time, because as we discussed, all of the department heads need to put their asks into the system, in January. And that system, the KVS system, where all those numbers are, is not something that we had access to. Now, Lonnie's done a great job of using what we have to put it in those folders. And again, you knew that kind of came online in the year, and that was not the plan. The plan was to have this new software up and running so that we could actually use that. And I'm told that when we start the budget season, late fall this year, that new system will be up and running so that we won't be wasting time and you will have access to look at it. And all of the numbers, maybe with except maybe the school, will be in there in January. And then it's just a matter of us getting through each one of those departments to answer those questions about those numbers that have been put in there and why there are any particular increases that we need to ask questions about. So you're preaching to the choir. And I think we're finally at a point, Mike, where we can make that happen. And again, all I can say is we appreciate everything that all the volunteers do and have done. But that's the plan.
I definitely think going forward, even with the new system, there'll be growing pains. And that's kind of why I wanted to outline some of the things that were big ticket items for us. Like I agree with you, Mike, completely about, prepping ahead of time and, formulating a list of questions and having that time frame and that access. I definitely agree with you. Can't go in these meetings blind and then expect to perform in that moment and then left there with, questions that you're still not 100% sure on or things that come back to you later just because you didn't have the time to think it through prior. Jack, any other thoughts on your side of things?
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate Mike Morley's insights on the technology and the like. I too have been on the finance committee, obviously not as long as some members, but longer than some. And I do think that the board and Kim make a great effort to keep us informed and as to these items. And things happen. It's a municipal finance set of circumstances, things, in not only municipal, but in business where things are going to be come up that are unanticipated, are perhaps last minute and the like. Always room for improvement, seems to me. But the great part about it is I think we have very well-intentioned people who are at the heart of the process here. So I'm confident that it will get better with time, and I think getting perhaps some outside advice on the finance, how we handle the finances of the town, I think was a great move by the board. And be interesting to see what the recommendations are that emerge from that. And if there are recommendations that are worthy of adoption, I have every confidence that the board will undertake them.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Getting a look at that report will be very interesting to see what that has to do. And I mean, like to your point, Jack, I know that I'll do better next year. Just having a year in now, you know what I mean? And
well, I think you need to give yourself a break. I mean, you would never. I think you're probably the first person in the history of the finance committee to be appointed one week and become the chair the next.
Yeah,
you've got a lot to learn.
And
I think you've learned a lot. So
no, definitely right. Trying. So.
You learn to swim, right?
That's it. That's how I've always learned anyway. So jump both feet in. Sorry, guys.
The only thing I'd like to add, again, I have a suggestion of what I'd like to see going forward, that the financial team, my opinion of the financial team, is the select board, treasurer collector, town accountant, Kim or whoever holds that position, and the finance committee put together. This is what we do for the company that I've been working for 30 years, multi-billion-dollar company. We put together a playbook on how the budget goes. For instance, this year is going to make history because this is the first year we're going to have 5 selectmen. 2 of them have never sat in a seat before. One of them held the office previous. So going forward for the future, so that we don't go, well, this is, Mike and I can say, this is how we used to do it and know what we're talking about. Where Mike, you wouldn't know, Jack wouldn't know. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if we have a playbook
Yeah, I've never felt more flying blind through a process ever in my life. And so I'm just
I
floored.
agree. And this is, but again, the good news is that Department of Revenue's Division of Local Services has an awful lot of resources. And the reason they're coming in to first look at what we do, and then they're going to give us boilerplate of how things are done. So we make sure, not only we're going to make sure we're doing it right, we're actually going to have a document so that we can hand it to somebody and say, this is how we do this.
Are they gonna have
And-
any kind of, not to interrupt you, but they're gonna have any kind of presentation on how all this is gonna come together? That, like we'd be available to see or webinar?
The short answer is I hope so.
Okay.
That's my plan. And something else I tried to find out, going back years ago when I was first on the Valley Tech School Committee, the superintendent at the time, which believe it or not was before Dr. Fitzpatrick, that's how long ago it was, sent me to a seminar that the school committees in Massachusetts put on called On Board, and it was for newly elected school committee members. And I've been searching for something for finance committee members and new select board members. And believe it or not, there isn't anything like that right now. And I'm hoping it's because of the pandemic and they're going to get back on track. But I'm trying to facilitate that. But I agree with you, Mike Krager, that it's something that needs to be worked on, and we're doing what we can to get it to that point.
Okay. Any other points you guys want to add? I think one of the big things that I had in my head was that I want to make sure that we get a little bit better direction from the Board of Selectmen themselves as far as, what the budget is going to, what they're looking for in the budget that they're creating or that's being brought before them, so that we know not to get tied up in things that, for example, asks, for example, that will not be approved, if that makes sense, not having to dig our way through that if there's going to be no approval on the other end.
Yeah, I only have one additional item, if you don't mind, Mike Jones. And this may be a little far afield, but I do think as part of the consult that we're getting the benefit of, that we ought to perhaps give some thought to getting a specific recommendation, I think, on the capital planning committee. I do think that we would all benefit from a recommendation from the capital planning committee on expenses that we know will arise just for example, the retirement of plant equipment, like useful life of the cruisers, useful life of fire apparatus and the like. We know those expenses are going to come up. Those future capital expenses are going to come up. And then there are the ones that are frankly not foreseeable, the ones that just arise because, for example, something's just,
Prematurely wears out.
Or there's just a need that we need to address. Senior center, for example, right? That, for example, has been a long time in the works, but it would be, I think, really helpful to get the Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, and also the Capital Planning Committee, fully aligned to understand that, decision A on an expenditure where, we decide that or recommend the expenditure of to the town meeting involving a capital expense, we're in a position to defend it based on needs and priorities as opposed to, over the long term, as opposed to just a budget cycle and as opposed to just the emergency that arises. Because, as you all know, I mean, we had the brush truck and the need for the brush truck, and we heard from the fire chief about the need for the brush truck. But I think as much as the need is there for that, and it was a demonstrated need, I think it's also important for us to, at least as a committee, to understand how that fits into the sort of overall sort of picture for the town. Because quite frankly, an expenditure there means perhaps we're not going to be able to spend money elsewhere.
Agreed.
And to jump on that, Jack, not just in the capital sense, but we should be able to look at least 2 to 3 years out for each department of where they want to be going and why. Whether it's bodies they need to be adding for support, are they looking to, restructure how their personnel are set up, right? We've been trying to hire more full-time folks, it seems, which has a drastic impact on lots of other expenditures. So I really think not just capital expenditures looking forward, but all of the departments and their budgets. Obviously, the further out in time you go, the fuzzier it gets, and we should be okay with that. But we should be able to have a frank conversation of what is the planned, 2, 3, 4 year lookout for your department, and what does that expenditure look like out into the future? And are we growing at a rate that is too fast? Do we have an issue with revenues coming in? Is there a big I mean, we already know that there's an issue, right? But is there a bigger inflection point that's going to show up that just isn't on our radar screen right now? Is there a meteor headed our way that we just don't know about because we didn't look up? So I'd like to start more forward thinking across the board.
Yeah. Well, we did have, the capital planning committee's idea is looking 5 years out. We don't have a capital planning committee right now. Frankly, the members got discouraged because there was never any money to do it. But
is there any talk to adding or
yes,
pulling that bylaw?
Not to get again to get off topic, but as far as all of the boards and committees, we're going to be putting out a solicitation for anybody that wants to volunteer in any way, or any of the boards and committees. So hopefully we'll be able to get that in place. And I will tell you that, with the new fire chief and also the police chief, they've done a great deal of forward looking and planning that in my tenure we haven't had before. Like for instance, we do have a 5-year replacement plan for the rescue, for the ambulance, which is something that we deal with every year. But there's money in the budget to put aside so that isn't some kind of surprise, because like you said, we know it's coming, right? We know that it's got a useful life. Believe it or not, cruisers, police cars are not considered capital expenses. They're consumables, but they're still on a cycle, right? But you're right. There's an awful lot of things that we need to look at, particularly in the highway department. We know that we're millions of dollars short of what we need to properly maintain everything, based on a study that was done in 2016. And some of it has to come from outside of our little town with Chapter 90 and on the state level. And it's a matter of holding our elected representatives accountable on the state level. But again, if you don't have a plan and you don't know what those expenses are, it's very difficult to go to somebody and tell them we need this, because in 3 years, this is gonna blow up. So again, I agree with you both, and that is part of this. The first step is to review where we're at, and then get local services to come in and give us some help on giving us the framework for us to develop this plan so that we can move forward in a more fiscally organized way, right?
I would like to request that the finance committee, as part of the DLS review prior to it being complete.
Yep.
I would hate for FinCom to just get a readout of the state once it's done, right? Yeah.
Part of that process is going to be that there'll be an opportunity for them to interview any of the players to give their input, and just be careful, you might get signed up for things,
Oh, I'm well aware of the don't give any goody ideas, because you're going to get an action item.
Yeah, well, there you go. Right.
That's good. Okay. Any other items on anybody's mind, guys?
No, but again, I just want to reiterate that what we were just talking about, so we we just don't talk about it once.
Yeah, I was gonna put this into an email.
Again, we talked about the financial team put together a formal playbook on the budget process that 5 years from now, we could all be not on the board, the members that are on the board have something to follow.
Yeah, exactly.
And not go,
Yeah.
oh, I forgot. to
I have-
this.
do you know
When
I-
did we get this?
I found a document that Sharon Cutler developed for the selectmen back, it was a selectman back then. And that's got to be over a decade old, 15 years old,
It's 10
right?
years old.
but I have it. And it's a draft. And again, it's, there's a list of things, but that's the idea, is so that when somebody new comes, we can hand them. I mean, the town clerk handed me the selectman handbook.
Yeah.
But that's a somewhat dated,
Should,
the moths came flying out of it and,
but like I said, it should be a standard issue.
right.
Yeah.
And again, we should continue to talk about capital planning committee. And I like Mike's idea of start formulating long-term plans
Yeah,
for
2 to 3 years.
/ from each department.
Right.
And that's something we can begin to request
Thinking
now.
long-term.
Oh, and I'll guarantee you, if you ask them, they've all got a list,
Right.
Right.
So we should devote time to.
Yeah.
Encourage it.
Right.
But if we don't give them the opportunity, give people the opportunity to talk about it, they're discouraged, and it's gonna fall to the wayside.
Right.
And that actually needs to be done prior to budget season of
Yeah.
that,
Oh,
That's what I'm saying.
upcoming fiscal year, right? Because then you get into the firefighting of, well, this is more important, and then you never get to it, right? So,
Exactly. That could be that could be a summer project right there to get started on. I like that. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of outline this into an email to everybody. And then if I've missed or haven't encapsulated everything correctly or whatever, you guys can add to it as well. And then that'll kind of be like our, a Y23 document, whatever, so we can all find it very easily going forward. You know what I mean?
sounds good.
Yes.
Okay.
Some of this stuff we can incorporate into bylaws. Again, if you take a look at, just for instance, the finance committee bylaw,
Mhm.
it's actually, because of the way we're starting to change how we do things, we should probably change that bylaw.
Yeah, once we create the
Just like the
playbook,
new
yeah,
pack,
yeah,
Right.
the new pack, get the playbook together and then make sure
you know what I mean?
the
Yep.
playbook matches the
You can't-
bylaw.
We're following rules that apply, kind of.
Well,
But you
right,
follow what I'm
right.
saying.
No, we're
Before we get into-
we're changing the process so that it doesn't match the bylaw anymore. So but let's create the problem and then we'll fix it, right?
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense.
all right.
All right, guys, I appreciate you coming in. That's awesome.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Mike Krager, second.
All those in favor?
Jack, aye.
Mike Krager, aye.
Excellent, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Okay, awesome.